Haul Down the Hulk. I can't say Hawk. Hello everyone, it is Jazz here. So this is sort of a double video of me basically combining the 2020 to be read list and also throwing in there my 2020 reading goals. But before we jump into all that, I just want to do a small celebration because in the year of 2019, I completed 108 books. I set my Goodreads goal for 50 books, thinking, I'm probably not going to read more than 70 books, and I read 108 books. I can't believe it. I've never read that many books in a year. It's super exciting, so let's do a dance of joy. Woo! I'm going to start with my reading goals. I only have 3 reading goals. I like to keep it at a low level. Yet again this year for my Goodreads challenge, I'm just going to set my book reading to 50 books. I like that it's manageable. I like that I can be surprised if I read more than 50, but I'm quite happy with just reading 50 books because life happens sometimes, and sometimes you don't get to as many books as you think you will. And also, I don't know what my reading mood is going to be. I might want to read really, really long books or something in 2020 and read less books. My next goal is to read more before I go to sleep. And this is more for like myself than actually trying to read more books. Because I do have ADD and dyspraxia, it's really hard for me to wind down in the evening and for me to sleep well. And I have found that when I have implemented reading before I go to sleep into my schedule, I do sleep a lot better and I go to sleep a lot earlier. I'm not really like stipulating like the format of how I read. I'm gonna accept reading books in print. I'm gonna accept reading books that are graphic novels or manga. I'm also going to be like, sometimes you just want to listen to your audiobook, as long as I'm like doing some sort of reading before I go to sleep. That is applicable. And my final goal is to complete 2 books series during the year, because I'm not very good at keeping up with series books, and I think if I at least complete 2, I can like, feel like I did it for the series books this year. On to my favorite part of the year beginning videos, and that is of course the 2020 to be read list. So I did something a little different than I normally do. First of all, I didn't do it in categories like I normally do, mostly because I just didn't feel like doing it in categories, except for one category, of course, the Shakespeare Play of the Year. I also decided to just solidify my to-be-read list to only 10 books for the year of 2020. Previous years, I've picked quite a few books. Like last year, I put 32 books on my list. Obviously, my goal was not to finish all 32 of those books, but to finish at least 16 or 17 of those books. I did finish 10 of them, which isn't bad, but there were still like a lot of unread books that I wanted to get to and I just didn't get to. And I thought this year I would accommodate for the fact that I would like to actually read possibly all of the books that are on the list, because I know I can at least finish 10 books on my list. Am I right? And then also, I needed to accommodate and sort of rework things because I do really enjoy utilizing my library now and picking out things on a whim and reading quite a few things that I don't already own from the library. So I also tried to pick 10 books that I already owned, except for 2 of the books. One because I haven't bought it yet, and one because the book is not out. Aside from that, these are books that I've owned, and I've owned for a little bit, so that's my ideology. I'm gonna start off with the Shakespeare Play of the Year. So I realized in previous years I've been reading quite a few of Shakespeare's tragedies, so I decided to break it up and read a comedy, and I'm going to read Twelfth Night this year. Now, I probably won't start reading it till the last week of December because that's the way that I seem to be doing it in the last couple of years. But I feel like it's a good way to spend the last week of December. I'll just like pencil it in for the last week of December. But I'm really excited to read this one. I don't think I've seen any version of it, so maybe I'll try to watch some version of 12th Night. Let me know if you have any recommendations of like video or film versions of that play, and I will give it a go and also read it. I know I said there weren't categories, but I guess there are. I could separate this to a certain extent into like series and standalone, because there are some series books or series type books that I do have on this list. So first up, I would like to complete The Magician's King and The Magician's Land, which are the second and final book of the Magician's series by Lev Grossman. Did enjoy the first book in the series, and I, of course, really enjoyed the TV show. I'm assuming that the books are going to go in quite a different direction than the TV show, so I'm intrigued to see how they, get along and really enjoy the world. I feel like the world building is very interesting to me in the Magicians series, and that's like one of my favorite parts of it, so I'm excited to investigate that. And also the characters are sort of likably unlikable, and I want to see if they get like straight up likable by the end. I'm just intrigued by this. I want to read Dr. Sleep by Stephen King. I'm in the middle of a reread of The Shining, which is for some reason taking me forever to read, even though I'm enjoying my reread of The Shining. And I want to continue on after I've completed that into Dr. Sleep. I know that you don't necessarily have to remember The Shining to read this, but I just want to, and I kind of want to read this book before I watch the film adaptation. I've always been intrigued by this one. Excited to see Danny grown up and see what all goes on. It sounds like it's going to be a really cool adventure, so hopefully end up liking it. Then I would like to read Maggie Stiefvater's first book in the Dreamer trilogy, I believe is what this spin-off series of the Raven Cycle is called, which that is, of course, Call Down the Hawk. I literally got this book on the day it came out. I pre-ordered it and I proceeded to not read it. So I feel like I'm not part of the BookTube planet. I definitely want to dive into this book. I am a little concerned on how I'll feel about it, but I'm hoping it will at least be in the 4-star range. And I'm excited to meet new characters, because I know this is going to feature some new characters, and I'm excited to see what the new characters in this are going to be about. Next book I don't actually own yet because it is not out yet, but that would be Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, which is the first book in the newest Shadowhunter series. I can't remember what this one is called, but I'm sure somebody will tell me in the comments below, so please do. I told my BookTube friend AJ that we would buddy read this book when it came out, so I am going to buddy read this one with AJ over at A Stitch in Time. I do have some sort of required reading before I can read this book, but I didn't add that required reading to this list because I only wanted 10 books on this list. So I do need to finish Dark Artifices before I can read this in the next couple of months. I'm halfway through Lady Midnight, so I just need to complete that, complete the other two. I think if I audiobook them and get it under my belt, this could be doable. So I do have required reading before I can read Chain of Gold, but I'm just putting Chain of Gold on my list. I'm kind of intrigued to see what this series is going to be about, because wow, this Shadowhunters thing just keeps going. It's the gift that keeps giving. Last sort of series type book that I want to dive into is the third omnibus of Blade of the Immortal. I did intend to read this for one of the Tome Topple rounds, or the last one that happened in 2019. I just didn't get around to it, but I was kind of glad, because I'd like to reread previous volumes before diving in the new volume, solely because it can get kind of complicated in terms of the subplots, and I feel like if I haven't read the series one right after the other, I forget stuff. And also every time I reread the volumes of this, I see something new. So that's why I'm completing this series quite slowly, but I really love it when I read it. Samurai action is bomb. The emotional revenge plotness is always great in this. So I'm excited to dive into this and reread the previous 2 volumes before I dive into number 3. On to the standalone books. I only have 3 of them because somehow that's how it worked out. Don't know why. Usually there's more standalone books because that is more my jam than series books. But, you know, focusing on series is sometimes a good thing. So the first one I have is Making Bombs for Hitler. So I think it's about a young girl that is Jewish that ends up kind of in a bomb factory making bombs for the Nazis and how that turns out. So I don't know. I'm just intrigued by this book, and it's not very long, so I definitely think I could complete it quickly. I feel like this is a good way to get some historical fiction in for sure for the year of 2020. Next book is a poetry book. It is Listen to the Warm by Rod McEwen. So I haven't often on a yearly TBR put a poetry book on it, so I thought I would put a poetry book on this time. I got this at a library sale maybe a couple of years back. I scanned a few of the poems and they seem like poetry that I would really enjoy. So I thought I would put it on the list and actually like try to like get a good completion of this book. And I haven't read a poetry book in a long while. I did read one in 2019. So I think I should read another one in 2020. At least one. And the last book on my to be read for 2020 is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. So this is a retelling of Little Mermaid, but I think they're more like sirens. I love sirens. I love mermaids. I love a retelling. So this sounds like it's up my alley. Also, this was the book that I won for the final Bibliothon for the makeup challenge. I wanted to read it right when I got it just for the sake of, yay, I won a book. But I couldn't squeeze it in. So I would like to squeeze it in for sure during this year. It's not very long, so I think that I could complete it rather quickly, and I'm very intrigued by the plot because, like I said, like, sea creature people are my jam. So those were my 2020 reading goals and my 2020 to be read list. Let me know in the comments below some of your reading goals, and also if you have like a few like key books that are on your to be read list for the year of 2020. Really excited to dive into this new year of reading. I hope you are too, and I will see you all soon. Thank you for watching, my fabulous peeps. Bye!